Another year, another list. So it feels like just yesterday I made my previous video about Game of the Year for 2015. So here we are at the start of November, and we're going to look at two or three things really. I'm going to go with two. So, what will be your Game of the Year for 2016? And, same as last year, what is your biggest flop and biggest letdown of 2016 as well? So, 2016 has, despite what many people will tell you, myself included, the 2016 has had a huge amount of big name games. Sure, towards the start of the year, like hell, up until August, a lot of these games were spread out fairly thin, and you'd get maybe one a month, sometimes one every 2 months, at least when it comes to big name, big title games. Or, now the thing is, we're in November. We've hit the Christmas season. September, October, as I said, start of November, all the big releases are either out or there's only very few left to be released. You've got the big Christmas releases. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare is out. Battlefield 1 is out. Titanfall 2 is out. There's so many. Gears of War 4, Forza Horizon 3, they're all out. There's almost all the big games are already out. Now, let's not forget some of the earlier games in the year as well. I know I'll realize I'll probably forget a couple of them in here too. But you've got, let's go with big title games starting from earlier on in the year. The Division. You've got Uncharted 4. You've got Overwatch. You've got Doom. Let me just quickly tab over to Steam here, see what I have installed at the same time. So yeah, you've got those games. You've got Dark Souls 3. You've got Deus Ex Mankind Divided. You've got Doom. I think I already said Doom, I can't remember. Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim Special Edition, aka the remaster. We've said Battlefield 1, we've said Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, or whatever way you want to look at it, Call of Duty 4, Gears of War 4. They're all there. Those games are all out. People have got the chance to experience them. People have potentially got the chance to be let down by these games. Now, I know it's very possible, but very possible that you like all of these games. Nothing wrong with that. If you like all of these games, that's cool. Good for you. I'm not going to say anything about that. But obviously, some of these are more disappointing than others. And I know, while personally I haven't played some of them, I can't really comment on Dark Souls 3, for example, because I bought it on a whim. And I've played it for like 20 minutes. I still plan on getting around to it at some point, but yeah, I can't properly say it. I'm not going to say it's a bad game, because I just honestly don't know. But what I'm going to go with is I'm going to look at some of the greatest games of the year, or particularly I'm going to try to pick out my game of the year so far. And at the same time, we're going to look at what would potentially be the biggest flop of the year. Now, one thing I'll also say is, sure, not all the big games are out so far this year. We're only at the start of November. There's still plenty of time for Pokemon Sun and Moon to come out, which are going to be huge. I can't wait for them. I'm going to go fucking balls deep into those. I can't wait. Final Fantasy 15, a game that has been in development for about 10 years, delayed 6 billion times, and has me very worried based on the quality of the demos I've played, but I'm still going to buy it. And let's see, the Dead Rising 4 is also out next month in December. A game I hopefully can't wait for, and will be hopefully good. I love Dead Rising 1. I love Dead Rising 2. Dead Rising 3 isn't bad, but I have hopes for Dead Rising 4. And of course, because it's still November, and there's still about a month and a half for The Last Guardian to finally be delayed again out of 2016, because it's The Last Guardian. So, now, that could disappoint us, that could surprise us, whatever. Also, I plan on getting The Last Guardian, so you get the idea. So, there's so much to be said. So, I'm going to start with the biggest flop of the year. Now, I'm not going with my personal biggest flop, because I don't really have a personal big flop this year. A lot of the games I was interested in, they've relatively lived up to the mood I was in for them. The closest thing to what I would consider my own personal flop this year would be, now, and see, it doesn't really sound like I'm going to do it justice, because I'm going to say Gears of War 4. Gears of War 4 is great in almost every aspect. I love Gears of War 4. It's fantastic. It's obviously one of the best games of the year, and I do love playing it. But one thing I will say is I was more interested in the story mode and the horde mode. I don't really care for versus in that. They're just shotguns of war across the map. It's a little bit more balanced and a little bit better in Gears of War 4 for some aspects for the versus mode, but still I don't really factor that in because I just don't play it. But I was kind of a little bit disappointed in Horde with how great Horde was in Gears of War 3. Like, when they introduced Horde in Gears 2, it was brilliant. When they upgraded it and changed it in Gears of War 3, it was even better. When they brought it in Gears of War Judgment, a game I personally think was fucking shit, but the Horde aspect of Gears of War 4 or Gears of War Judgment was pretty good. It was a nice different take, and while it was comparable to Gears of War 3 in some ways, the Horde mode, some aspects of it were better, some weren't. But when they went to Gears of War 4 and brought in Horde to that, it's still fun and enjoyable to play. I was just expecting better, given of what we've seen in the past. I know this one was developed by the Coalition rather than Epic Games and then People Can Fly, but you get the idea. I was expecting a bit more. I still enjoy it. It's still great. It's still good, I should say. And Gears of War 4 in general is pretty great. But you get the idea. It was a little bit of a letdown for me. It's definitely by no means bad or unenjoyable. So that's why I say having it as my biggest flop of the year is not doing it justice, because I don't really consider it a flop. Now, so on top of all, that's why I'm not really going into that. But at the same time, I'll leave that one there as that comment. Now, when it comes to biggest flop of the year in general, there's two massive candidates for this, and they both have their own perfect reasons for it. One is The Division. And we all know The Division was massively hyped up for ages, and it was delayed a time and time again. There was the visual downgrade, all that kind of crap. And then when the game came out, it turned out it was arse, and the game was pretty shit. And the whole Dark Zone thing was awful, which is essentially the majority of the game, because once you play through single player, if you don't do Dark Zone, the game is basically over. So, based on everything, the balance, the way things had to be done, the time to kill enemies, the crappy drop rates, the crappy upgrade systems, the crappy Dark Zone systems, a lot of the crap in-game mechanics and all as well, The Division basically flopped. And it lost something like 90% of its players or 85% of its players within like 2 or 3 weeks. And that says it all, really. The fact that they have to completely drastically overhaul the game. I mean, they delayed some of the DLC so they could drastically overhaul the game, fix the cheater aspect, fix the exploits, fix and change a load of the mechanics, the systems, all that shit, just so, because the game was in such a bad situation that they actually had to do all that. And I think it's on 1.4 now. Apparently it's supposed to be a lot better than it originally was, but you could almost say the damage is done, and it spoke for itself. So that's one of the top contenders up there as well. Some people watching this video will say Dark Souls 3. Again, those are just usually the Souls fanboys. Now, it's fine to be a Souls fan. Well, it's not really fine to be a Souls fanboy. But I mean, if you take Dark Souls 3 as your personal favorite game of the year, good for you. Cool. I'm not gonna debate that. You obviously enjoy that as your best game of the year. Cool. So yeah, now there's the other one when it comes to biggest flop in general of the year, and this one is the one that's actually going to win the award, and that game is No Man's Sky. I'm not even going to explain why it's No Man's Sky. If you just quickly go to Google, type in No Man's Sky, just ignore the Sony, ignore the Sony store page, and ignore the actual standard Steam page, like just the description, and every single other aspect, or not aspect, every single search result you get is exactly why it deserves the biggest flop of the year award. So I'm not even going to go into details on it because I don't need to. More has been said about that game in its like 3 months of release. Let's see, it came out in August, September, October, November. Yeah, in its 3 months of release, more has been said and more negativity about that than possibly any other game in history. So, well, it's not personally my biggest flop of the year because I never thought No Man's Sky looked any good, so I never bought it, never played it. Yeah, I'm awarding my biggest flop of the year to No Man's Sky. So, on top of all that, or on the flip side of all that, we'll look at Game of the Year 2016. Now, I'm going to put this little bit in here first, is when it comes to games that aren't out yet, it's very possible that Pokemon Sun and Moon could be one of my games of the year. For the simple reason is they're adding a lot of stuff. They are adding a lot of new stuff. Even to me, a veteran Pokemon player, ever since the 90s, playing Pokemon Red and Blue when they were brand new. I got them from the US. I was in the US shortly after they came out, and I picked them both up there, and that's how I've been hooked, how long I've been hooked to Pokemon. So, even for a veteran player like myself, they do seem to be adding a bit much that looks, even to me, a little bit daunting. Now, I'm sure once I get the hang of it, like, I haven't really been keeping up with all the newest systems in detail in Sun and Moon, but when the game actually comes out and I start playing it, I'm sure it will all just come as second nature to me. So that's not a problem. They are simplifying a couple of other things. Hopefully they add in a few extra bits in as well. I mean, still to this day, as far as I know, Pokemon Silver and Gold were the only ones to have 2 regions in it, and that multiple region aspect was brilliant. It basically gave you, at the time, the entire Pokemon catalog to work with, because you had 2 regions. There was only 2 regions at the time. You could get all 150, or the majority of 151 from the first area, and a majority of the 151 from the second area. So, yeah, that was pretty good. Hopefully they bring back some sort of aspect into Sun and Moon to make it kind of backwards compatible, if you will, with that kind of stuff. So I am potentially leaving that open for one of the Game of the Year slots. There's 2 others I'm going to put into the potential Game of the Year. One of them, many people will understand why, because it's just been an absolute runaway success, and the fandom and the quality and just everything, basically everything about it, is just top notch ever since its release. And that game is Overwatch. So we all know Overwatch at this point. It just kind of came out of nowhere on me personally, because the game came out in May. Up until the start of May, I thought I had no time for Overwatch whatsoever. Didn't watch any of the videos. Didn't really read any of the stuff about it. I mean, it came out alongside Battleborn, and at that point I was like, okay, these are just 2 online competitive style games. I've no interest in these whatsoever. Guy in work got me to play the open beta at the start of May. I said, you know what, I'll play it. The game was so good, I was hooked halfway through my first match. And that was it. Now, personally, I've gotten a little bit bored of Overwatch at the moment. I'm rank 3022. Sorry, so I'm diamond, and I'm just leaving it there in season 2. But I've just kind of cooled off on Overwatch. I don't really play it as much anymore. And like I play it maybe once every 2 weeks, if even. But everything that they keep adding to it, everything that they support for it as well, the quality of the videos, the quality of the gameplay, the animations. I do think it's not perfect, because Blizzard and their little balance that goes back and forth, and some of the stuff that is just kind of broken and they claim to have fixed but never fixed. Looking at you, Roadhog's chain. But you get the idea. So I'm sure it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, selling game of the entire year. Last I checked, it sold something like 14 million copies in just a handful of months. So there's still a Christmas season for that to actually come out and sell God knows how many millions more. So yeah, you can understand why I put that as one of the top contenders. But personally, for me, this is going to be about a positive and negative side of it. The bit I'm about to say is, I think my game of the year so far, like I said, I haven't played Sun and Moon, so that could happen, is Doom. The Doom, I won't call it remake, but the game that's essentially Doom 4. So there's a reason for that. Okay, I play first-person shooters. I don't begrudge anyone who plays first-person shooters. There's people who just play Call of Duty every year. I'm not one of those guys, but I realize I am using Call of Duty footage for this, but you get the idea. Yeah, so Doom was a pretty important game this year because several reasons. And one of those is it basically revitalized. Now, I'm gonna this might not make sense to a couple of people, but I am going to kind of expand on it. Doom both revitalized a current stale genre and an old, almost dead, if not dead, genre. Now, people are probably wondering, it's like, how first persons are still being made. So when I say it revitalized a current, ongoing, stale, I'm after hitting the I don't know how I managed that. I opened my disk drive with my foot. That's right. There's actual an optical drive on my computer. But anyway, yeah, how did it revitalize a current, ongoing, stale franchise or IP, not franchise or IP, genre? There you go. And it did that because of the style of gameplay. It was quick. The game looks great, runs amazing because of OpenGL and Vulkan. The game looks amazing. The graphics on it are brilliant. The new engine is fantastic. ID Tech 6. I refuse to call it id Tech, but yeah, ID Tech 6 is fantastic. The game looks brilliant. It runs amazingly, and at the same time, it's fast, it's fun, it's furious, which is great. That's a big shape up from the usual Call of Duty, the usual Battlefield. Other first-person shooters are escaping me right now in just off the top of my head. But it completely changes and does not feel like your standard first-person shooter that many people would buy. Now, when it comes to revitalizing an almost dead, if not dead, genre, that is the old school style of genre, the old school style of first-person shooter genre, I should say. So when you compare it to games like, the perfect example is the old original Doom and games based and styled like that, it brings them up, revitalizes them to a new current 2016 standard. And that's a good thing because those games are fucking amazing. That's all I can say. Those games are brilliant. Now, so that, I mean, when you take both of those into consideration, that's brilliant. Now, I will say at one point on that does bring this to a negative is the fact that Doom is my favorite game, or my greatest, not greatest of all time, my game of the year 2016 so far is kind of disheartening. I expected better. Doom is still a great game. I love it. I'm playing through it again. But I was still expecting more. Something more this year. Something better this year. Which is a bit unfortunate. Fun fact, actually. I only found this out over the weekend that just passed. I was talking with John Romero, one of the creators of original Doom and Quake and Wolfenstein 3D. And I actually found out from himself that I won't say that he had input on the new Doom, but it's more so that he was talking to some of the technical directors and the lead designers, the head creators and stuff. And he was telling me that they copied the metrics from the original Doom games. Now, when I say they copied the original metrics and put them into the new one, what I mean is they took the kind of the spread on the pistol. They took the damage on the pistol. They took the health of the enemies. They copy and pasted it over. They took the kind of spread from the shotgun. They took the damage from the shotgun. They copy pasted it over. So it feels like old Doom because essentially you're firing the same shotgun, which has the same spread and the same type of damage, the same numbered damage based on your range and all. And you're hitting an enemy that you're familiar with for the same amount of damage on his same amount of health. So he's still dying in the same kind of hits, the same kind of thing. It's a really good way of doing it. Copying all that stuff over to give it the old school feel in more ways than one. So I thought that was really good. The fact that he was talking to one of those guys and he had that kind of input. Well, from the way he explained it to me, they actually told him that they did that while he was giving some input and his opinions on it. So I think that's pretty cool if you ask me. So that's basically how it goes. Overall, greatest flop of the year is going to be No Man's Sky. Personal flop of the year would be Gears of War 4, but as I said in the video, I don't think that does it justice as a flop, because there was one or two things I was disappointed at, but I was extremely hyped about it, and I still really, really do like it. So that's why I don't think calling it a flop is doing it justice. But I usually am very careful with my expectations of games and all as well. So I mean, I generally, when I'm interested in a game, I follow it closely, and it doesn't turn out to be crap. Because now, for all I know, Final Fantasy 15 looks crap. I'm very, very worried about that game. That could be the biggest flop of the year for all I know. Or The Last Guardian. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, so those are my two. Game of the year for me is Doom. Could potentially be Pokemon. We'll see how it goes. So anyway, let me know in the comment section below what your Game of the Year 2016 is, as well as your biggest flop of the year 2016. Or what do you think deserves biggest flop of the year 2016? Even if it's not something, like obviously, I know No Man's Sky is the biggest flop of the year, but it's not my personal one, because I didn't play it. But you get the idea, so that's the kind of question I'm asking. So let me know all that in the comment section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter, details in the description below as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the rest of the videos in my channel from this extremely long, over the top lengthed video.